I get it.
Mbijan raganya.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la.
Ha, code nyingi.
Okay. What's that? Nsila ID soto.
Sa soto. Sorry. I get it.
Mbijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariya.
Bare.
Mo ki janna nun kunu bara tariya.
Jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbali ya bere. Birim koyna fo katon.
Bari si kodo kino katon nim fo bolong blabe.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nka kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 di nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi man domorol dir fana beteat. Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je.
Wo moyo diat.
Apelenta
baraka. Ni ma lafta nyelen kendol e bina.
Yalo bu kanyi la ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Baraka.
Him that the last time he sent the money, it was not enough to buy all the provisions.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell him.
Are you guys talking about money transfer to buy provisions?
Yes.
But don't you know about Baluwo?
Baluwo? What is Baluwo?
Baluwo is a service that your son can use to send provisions directly to you guys from the shop. And you don't have to worry about the exchange rate.
Tell me how Baluwo works.
It's very simple.
Just log on to baluwo.com and shop, or download the app on your phone. You can shop on the website or using the app to buy online basic products for your family and friends. With Baluwo, you decide what your money is spent on. Your money, your choice. Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.
Hello and welcome to the brunch. I am Lamin Cham, and this is our weekly look at current affairs in the Gambia and in the region, of course. Today, I am honored to have back in the studio the Honorable Bakary Bunja DABO. He is the leader of the Gambia for All Party, senior statesman and politician who was also Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, Minister of Information and Tourism, and Minister of Finance. Of course, he was also High Commissioner of the Gambia in Senegal, among other portfolios he held in his career. Mr. Dabo, like I said, is the leader of the Gambia for All Party. He was a veteran of the ruling party of the First Republic, that is the People's Progressive Party. This week, we will be discussing the state of the party and the state of the nation, as well as the state of affairs in our region, particularly in our neighborhood, Senegal, where Mr. Dabo also worked as a diplomat. Mr. Dabo, welcome to the brunch.
Thank you very much, Cham.
It's always an honor to have you. So, first of all, of course, like I told the viewers that might not be familiar with you, Bakary Bunja DABO was vice president between 1982 to 92 in the Gambia. Previously, of course, he has a background in economics and accounts. He works in the bank. He was also our High Commissioner in Senegal in the late 1970 to the early 1980 during the regime of Senghor, much later in Senghor's regime, I believe, and the beginning of Abdou Diouf's regime. Then he came back to be minister initially in the wake of the 1981 coup, and then vice president in 1992, and then rather 1982 up to 92, when he was appointed finance minister. He was the last finance minister under Jawara when the coup d'etat happened in '94, and even there he was called by the military junta, and a couple of months or maybe weeks, and he fell out with them, of course, on principle, and went into exile in the United Kingdom, where he stayed again, continuing to fight for the restoration of democracy in the Gambia. In the wake of the change of government in 2017, I think for the first time in 2018, he came back to the country, and since then he has been more or less resident back in the country. Mr. Dabo, welcome.
Thank you once again. Thank you, and my warm, respectful regards to your listeners.
Thank you.
Viewers.
Okay. So our viewers would like to know, of course, it's been close to 3 or 4 years since you returned, and then of course maybe 2 years or so, going to 3 since the founding of the Gambia for All political party. How has the party been doing since then?
Under the circumstances, I would say the party as an organization has been coming along satisfactorily. The circumstances I refer to have been characterized by a number of difficulties. The party was launched in 2000 and I think it was 2020. But that was the launch of the party was preceded the outbreak of COVID.
Yes, that's true.
And that was a major factor that hit us. It meant that in terms of ground activities, particularly outreach activities, to help plant the party in the whole the country, our efforts were constrained by the restrictions that the COVID situation brought about. We lost something like 18 valuable months, and it was only after the COVID, was reasonably under control and people's activities were not restrained that we resumed. And that just gave us time to go around the country. I myself led that effort. We spent about 7 weeks going around the whole country to speak to the people about our party, and not only the reasons why we set up, but the orientation that our party would be taking. And we had very good listening throughout. That was very encouraging and very satisfying. From Bara, we went all the way to end of Wuli before turning the other side of the river and came down, and we had very encouraging response. We had good listening and good exchanges. Of course, that's not that doesn't or didn't amount to actual adhesion to the party, but that's the beginning.
Okay.
And we got back and start now to structure the put up structures and try to build on that goodwill that has been demonstrated to us. Yeah. Unfortunately, again, our attention and our efforts were largely diverted by major national events like the presidential elections that came in 2021, and also parliamentary elections the following year and the council elections. Even though we ourselves might not have sponsored a candidate for the presidential elections, but that's such a major activity that he never left anybody unaffected. Even the attention of the people you want to talk to was focused on that. So, for us, for the growing of the party, that period also was very much a lost period. But still, we remain committed, and we have since resumed activities, learning from little experience we had on the ground. We are presently on a major exercise of checking on the efficiency of our structures and improving on them, and at the same time as undertaking other activities that the political parties do, in the form of training for our members. We believe very much that party activism has to require certain skills, and these have to be taught to people. You can't simply release people on the public with a microphone and say whatever they like. So we spend a lot of time on training. We also undertaking other activities that political parties do. So on the whole, I think under the circumstances, as I said, I'm quite happy with the way the party has been coming along.
Good. You know, of course, you belonged, used to belong to the PPP. We followed, of course, the unfortunate developments that led to some of you people and others forming or branching off to form the Gambia for All Party. But we had the interim leader, or whatever the nomenclature is, Keba Jallo, on this program, and he suggested that there probably might be or were moves to for the two sides to come together. He said he was very hopeful that something tangible will come out of that. What's your understanding of that?
Well, there is not any formal move that I'm aware of, but certainly a coming together, if you call it that way, of people who at one time or the other belong to the PPP, to my mind, would be a good thing. I would have no objection to that. But I like to use the occasion to clarify a certain matter about the nature of my relations with the PPP. You refer to me as a former member. I think technically I can even assert that I'm still a member of the PPP.
But then you cannot reconcile that with now having a separate political party.
No, there is nothing stopping from being a member of the two parties as long as the fundamental principles of those two parties are not incompatible.
But you cannot stand for elections, for example, for both parties.
Yeah, but when we get to that stage, we will sort that. We haven't got to that stage.
Okay.
We haven't got. No, I say so because it's important that we clarify matters. As you said, I don't claim to be a founder member of the PPP, but I've got strong and long-standing links with the PPP.
Indeed.
And when I formalized my membership of the party way back in 1970s, I took it very seriously because I have a good reason to believe that under the circumstances in the Gambia, the PPP stood for good, and it has achieved and continued to stand for good. And that was my position. Obviously, from 1994, with the bans placed on political parties and all the repressive periods we went through, I was away physically, but I still, wherever I was, continued to be PPP and contributed to the extent I could under the circumstances. Now, what happened was that I think back in 2018 or so, I was among some senior PPP members who really thought the party and a congress of the party was overdue because the bans that had been placed on the party in 1994 had been lifted. I think, I don't remember, but I think around
1996.
Yeah, something like that. And the party leaders that were on the ground here quickly moved and resolved to revive the party. And for the resolution they did was to ask the leader and the Secretary General of the party, who was also in exile, to continue to lead the party, Secretary General, and put in one or two temporary arrangements. The person who occupied the position of national president of the party, which was an honorary position but quite important as a moral authority, had unfortunately passed. So it was found necessary to replace him with Alaji Sise, and even though he was given the title of chairman of the National Executive Committee. That was really put up as an interim structure to help carry on the party. But then, that went on. And so by the time, some years after we started, some people started agitating that we should have a Congress to have the party not only reassess its situation, but come up with a leadership that would have emerged in keeping with the constitution of our party. This has not happened. And we anyway continued pressurizing, and I think 2018 we had a Congress. But by then, when I was invited to come down from London, I found on the ground there had been some differences. Yeah, a lot of differences. The Alaji Sise was thinking one way. The late Omar Jallo, who had been given a position called coordinator, wasn't well defined, but it was understood that to mean that he'll be the in charge of mobilization of the party activities. He and Sise had different camps, and the different ways of thinking, and they had different camps, even to the point of the venue. One was planning for a Congress in Brikama, the other one was planning it for somewhere. Anyway, some of us who had been agitating for Congress to be held, we came in and tried to get them to agree, and eventually we got Sise and his camp to agree that the Congress would take place and that's what happened. Unfortunately, the process, the holding of the event itself was terribly mad. Was marred by a number of irregularities.
At some point you went to court, is it?
Yeah, I'm coming. A lot of irregularities, and up to the point that it really vitiated the whole legitimacy of the process, because a Congress also has to follow certain laid down rules initially. And for instance, you even have to have a bureau of the Congress to conduct the proceedings. You have to do things according to normal, and you also have to insist and make sure that delegates who came were bona fide delegates. So it was at the end of the Congress that a lot of things came to light. Not only the proceedings themselves had no bureau. It was done in... Anyway, let me put it this way. There were a lot of irregularities as seen by a good number of participants. And following that, out of it came results that, somebody had been elected Secretary General of the party, and somebody as national president of the party, and only that. The full executive wasn't really formed. But such were the irregularities, so glaring that immediately a good chunk of party members really thought that was not good. And they tried to press a point to do a proper Congress. And when that didn't succeed, over time, the matter was taken to court. It took a long time because that action also was delayed by COVID. The matter was agitated before a high court judge, and COVID came, and I think she had to travel to America and Nigeria also, and only came back after a while. But anyway, the conclusion was that the judge must have seen that really the irregularities were too many. So put an appeal to the two sides to come and negotiate and come for an out-of-court settlement.
And you couldn't agree on that?
This out-of-court settlement was hammered out on the basis of what they call a consent agreement. And number one on that consent agreement was that a new Congress had to be convened of all parties and to be signed. And it was signed before the judge, and who confirmed it, and it became a ruling. It has the effect of a ruling. And that's where things stayed. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get that implemented. And the faction which, were the defendants in that case, went ahead and continued to claim that they are the
legitimate.
legitimate. They even held a congress somewhere in Brikama. They said they are now they've got some changes, and
the friction continued.
So as far as I'm concerned, I'm still PPP, and there are a number of people who are PPP.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what emerged later on as GFA was not necessarily those who split from PPP. No, there were some, but there were many others who never belong to PPP.
I see.
Oh yes, so the GFA certainly has a good number of people, I count me myself, who are PPP or who were PPP and are still PPP, but there are a lot who were never PPP.
Okay.
So that is a kind of relationship. I'm afraid people don't quite fully understand it.
So what in the event of a reconciliation, reunification, for example, people like Keba Jallo, who is still the interim leader of the PPP, reached out to you and your team and said, okay, Mr. Dabo, I want us to leave the past in the past and come together and continue with the PPP. Would you be willing to deregister the GFA and then continue with the PPP?
Well, let's say I said it to you that bringing, healing this schism, this split, would be a good thing. I would welcome it. Now, the form it will take is a different matter that will then be discussed at that point. I can't say it will take the form of one deregistering. There's something that has to be agreed on in any discussions we hold on the point. But as a matter of principle, yes, I have no objection.
Yeah, because a lot of people who support the PPP, and to be fair, a lot of people believe that you, rather than Papa Njai, and on all respect to Papa Njai, would have been more useful to the PPP at the time. And any time, in fact, given your status and your relationship with the party and your standing, they felt that it was just a personality or ego clash between you and the late Omar Jallo, or Mr. Jallo, claimed that, okay, when all of you were away, he was the foot soldier on the ground, he was the one detained, tortured by the military junta. So he felt some sort of entitlement, that he probably is more entitled to lead the party. But in this case, he was not even aspiring to be leader himself. But then, of course, he was grooming someone else. So many people felt that, with all due respect to his work, that was where he probably erred a little bit by not allowing you to automatically take the leadership. How do you see that?
Well, from my own standpoint, really, this personal aspect you're referring to never mattered. It was not an issue, and I give every respect to the memory of Omar Jallo. I respect his memory. You said some people thought I would perhaps been a better choice than. To me, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, there was something.
I'm coming. We attended the Congress and people told us that. I'm more concerned about the fact that the Congress was not done properly. Yeah, that was my major concern. If the Congress had been done correctly, and throughout the process, through up Mr. Njai or anybody else, there will be no problem. It's not a personal thing. Now, you said Omar Jallo might have thought in his mind, and nobody knows, that he had some. He was the one who kept the party going, but that didn't entitle him in terms of the statutes of the party. You might have done everything for the party, but it didn't entitle to, according to the statutes of the party, the principles of the party, to choose a leader. That has to be done according to the procedure laid down in the constitution. So,
but all the same, all of you appreciated that. He did a tremendous work on the ground. He was the one who really kept the party alive.
No, of course, yes. I mean, I did say that in the interim arrangements put in place, his responsibility was coordinator. Yeah, well, I mean, that's the responsibility he discharged. I mean, but to say, and to the extent that he had some elements of the party or structures of the party in place, that has to his credit, that has to be given. But what I'm saying is that doesn't give him any entitlement, or to anybody, any entitlement to take a major event as a Congress and put it aside and say, my will decide. I mean, before him, there had been, before that Congress, we had Congresses. And on such occasions, people like the former leader of the party, Sadara, could say, I did this for the party, but he didn't give him the entitlement to set aside what the Constitution lays down and say, no, I'm the one who will choose. And that is the same principle. The reason of having a Constitution is to see that these issues are well laid out, and that's how we should follow them. This is how you build institutions. As somebody said, what we need in Africa are not strong men, but strong institutions. So I stood on that point, that the party's constitution and the processes as laid down should have been followed, and they weren't followed. And that was why I went with those who said the matter should be challenged in court. It has nothing to do with how well Omar Jallo or which other office holder did or didn't do. That's a different matter. They might have done well, that's different. Okay. But it didn't entitle them to depart from what the Constitution lays down as the procedure and what processes the Constitution lays down for doing a proper Congress.
Now, both in terms of respect for the memory of Omar Jallo, the Sadao, the Jawaras, and all the others who were in the party, people felt that it's sad that his party, the PPP, should be in this sorrowful state, in terms of status in the Gambia, where you have even parties that are born, long after the PPP are more relevant. While the PPP, who really did, let's say, led the foundation for the Gambia as a nation, is still not as viable as it should be. The people said people like you and others should put ego aside, so to speak. I'm sorry for my language, but try to go back and say, look, okay, we might have differences, but we owe it to Jawara and all the people to bring this party back. Let us now come together now and forget about everything and put the party together. But maybe if people like you, Mr. Dabo, start such a process by reaching out and not waiting to be consulted, maybe that will help the process.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong for me or from anybody taking the initiative if he considers the circumstances are right, and we remain open to that. But other than that, I have nothing more to add to what I said, that the coming together of the groups into which the PPP split for me would be a good idea, but it has something to be worked on, and I hope when it's worked and agreed on principle. It cannot be done based on sentiment. It has to be done on firm principles, because the party is an institution. So we have to really give it a sound foundation, a solid foundation, which can stand the test of time. Otherwise, if you just go by sentiment, you may not get anything strong and tangible.
Good. Let's talk about the state of the nation. Well, it's been since 2021, of course. The new government, the new cabinet comes into place. You, as your party, have been a keen observer of the political and economic scene. At the end of the year, you came out with your perception. You touched on what you believe was wastage, so to call it, of resources. Resources have not been prioritized, and you think that government is spending too much on things that are not quite very helpful to addressing the poverty and the plight of the citizenship. That, among other things, were your observations. I want you to go back and reflect on this. How far do you think this government, the new government since 2021, have performed? Because we have, of course, the coalition government has now passed, as they would say. What have been your perspective?
I'd like to touch on 2 points. In relation to recent statements ascribed to me, which I own, I would like to come at the right time and elaborate a bit on the context, because these things should be seen in context, otherwise one can miss the point. But the earlier point is how I feel about the state of the country under the government that emerged from the 2021 elections. I would say really my own feeling is that this government is not without achieving anything. It has certainly achieved some degree, but overall it falls far short of my expectations.
Okay.
And this is not only in relation to the new government set up in 2021. It went back to the government which came up from 2017.
Okay.
I got back to this country in 2017, and like many other Gambians, both in the Gambia and the diaspora, of course, they thought they should give the new government, particularly it was a coalition government, some time. It's not healthy to just jump on and criticize so loud. So much of 2016, 17, 18, personally, I was among those who were observing. I think, but by 2019, going to 2020, we started seeing with great concern that things weren't either moving in the right direction, or even if it was announced that they would move in the right direction, on the ground, what we were seeing was not what we expected. This was easy for us because the 2016 elections was fought on a platform by the opposition coalition, on a platform which was well known, everybody.
Yes.
We wanted change. The country wanted change. The country had gone through 23 years of terrible governance, terrible misrule, which on all departments, whether it's fostering national unity, whether it's respect for the rights of citizens, whether it's in the area of the management of the economy, whether it's even in the area of our Gambia's relations with the rest of the world, we were left very dissatisfied.
Yes.
National unity founded on the basis of a sense of oneness, which the pioneers of our independence tried to forge.
Yes.
We saw wasted. Absolutely. We saw wasted for the first time in governance. We began to see clear manifestations of discrimination and polarization, which really was blamable on the way the government was running affairs. So the Gambia, some of us left behind, it was very different from the one we found when we came. A lot of division along ethnicity, along religious, and that was brought straightforward to the governance. The economy was in terrible shambles. The fundamentals were not respected, leading to a lot of difficulties with the IMF, as you know. But on the ground, the actual production also has come to almost zero. So the economy was in mess. When you talk about the delivery of public services, we saw how standards dropped down so terribly, whether it's in the social services or whether it's in support of agriculture and other productive activities. The standards of public service delivery went down terribly. And what is worse, we saw terrible negative things like malfeasance, corruption, mismanagement, rise to a level which was totally unimaginable. So when the people said they wanted a change, they wanted that kind of trend to be reversed. See, they want have a governance in which the oneness of the people is encouraged by practical policies, that can convince people that really that's the way the country should go. In the area of economy also, we wanted, sensible policies which will reverse the trend. So we didn't see that. Even in terms of, maybe in terms of our foreign relations, perhaps, we moved away from the erratic behavior which characterized the foreign relations. That's an area we did improve. But when it comes to the governance itself, the administration, if anything, we saw a continuation. So after 3-4 years, I came to that conclusion. That was also the conclusion shared by a number of people who joined us in forming Gambia for All. We thought, no, this government, in spite of what they claim, what their rhetoric, they are more for continuity than for change. So for us, the problem became continuity. Do you want things to continue or do you want to change? The continuity was visible in the absence of any change in the processes that were being followed, going up to the point of reaching out for personnel who were the main supporters of Yahya Jammeh in putting up that bad government. Even the personnel, we saw a clear policy that if you were you would tend to be preferred. They were drawn in. So we really were convinced that, sadly enough, no, this is not a government that is going in the direction of change. This was a government that stood for continuity. So, at that stage, we thought we should come in as a political party to support and work with other forces that want change. That's the fundament. And if you ask me about my thoughts about the country, I would say, unfortunately, very sadly, a lot of this still remains. A lot of this remains. We see some little changes. I mean, of course, the government rhetoric, if you listen, a lot of talk is about some project like build a road here, that which are good, but that's not the overall. It's far from the overall situation. So overall, I am sorry to say that I think I have to see convincing evidence of commitment and ability to move the country from where the dictatorship put it on the path of progress, on the path of genuine national oneness, and in the part of behavior in the international community as a responsible member of the international community, not somebody who just runs around. So this is my position. Now, when you come back to statements you observed, that as I said, I need to clarify the context. I really didn't want to use that forum to go out and criticize in a negative sense. No, that wasn't the case. As you mean national yes, we were invited to what was called consultations with political party leaders, preparatory to what they call national dialogue. The invitation letter admittedly was accompanied with a brief concept paper, which is very necessary for a thing like this, because we need to be clear about, in our mind, what is the original, what is it about, what is the dialogue going to be. What dialogue means means a forum for discussion, but you wanted to really beef it up so that the full concept is understood. Unfortunately, that concept paper itself and much of the statements made by the government since then still remain a bit vague. Vague. So to my mind, there is still a bit of a conceptual problem there, that people may see this in their different ways. So it became an issue which everybody sees it in different ways. And this is reflected in the statements that were made. That while some were taking it, maybe I don't blame them, maybe that's how they saw it. My opinion, I thought dialogue and also what was revealed in the concept paper, thought of a new approach, as a new compared to what obtained, of taking on board alternative perspectives on an issue. In other words, moving towards a more inclusive approach to governance, a more consensus building type of approach. And I welcome that. I was very excited when I read it. But that's based on my assumption. And when I was given a chance and a privilege to get up and say something, that was what I said. And I welcomed that very much. I think maybe I was carried. I commented a bit on the set agenda, set for the technical tasks who are supposed to go into the nitty-gritty of issues. And on them, there is this point about resource management. And it just came to my mind, but I could have talked about the others, like, I think they talked about religious tolerance. I could have talked about it, but and since time was limited, I just picked up that point. And I agreed that it was good and urgent that such an issue should be looked into. And I just expounded a bit on with thoughts that I have regarding the subject of resource management. Resource management, based on my own observation, I thought the governance of the country under the dictatorship and until now continue to be predominantly characterized by resource mismanagement, not resource management, resource mismanagement. And I tried to give a few examples, but time wasn't there. I talked about corruption, I talked about waste, I talked about embezzlement. There's a lot I could have said, but time wasn't. Unfortunately, media men being what they are, they choose their headlines, and that gave the impression that really that was my main point was to agree with the idea of dialogue on the basis of my assumption that we are moving towards a new element in the governance culture of our country, whereby being in the government doesn't exclude finding ways of consulting opinions on certain issues. And I did say that even that has to be done carefully. You have to be careful. We don't want to substitute political parties for the government. The government is the one that has a mandate. You see, we must not really try to tread on their toes. They still have to be responsible, but it's just to find a way, hopefully a flexible way, whereby on certain circumstances, it is possible for them to take into account what alternative opposition leaders feel about certain issues. And, I had most of the pronouncements were clapping, applauding the president, saying this is the first time in the Gambia. Now, I beg to differ. This is not quite correct. The government of Sadauda, which I had the privilege of being in, did do it, not in this formal, solemn setting, but a line of communication between Sadauda and the main political leaders, and I knew that existed. Oh, yes. Even though when we go to elections, we fight out. But Sadauda continuously remained in touch with Sirif Diba and the late Hassan Musa on a number of issues. Sometimes it is the initiative would come from Sadauda and say, well, we are thinking of what do you feel? We may not eventually take what they feel, but they are consulted. Sometimes it is other way. They would consult Sadauda and say, look, we say this is going or this is announced, do you take it? Then he listened to them. And again, we may not take, but at least he listened. So there was dialogue in that sense of consulting and taking on board other people's alternatives. So when they say, even at the sector level, my humble self was Minister for Education in 1987, and I came on board at a time when the what was called education policy lasted about 5 years, was coming to an end. And I thought to have a new education policy, we need to have a real dialogue, not only with other political parties, but with everybody. And I was behind the idea of a national education conference, which lasted about almost a whole week, with every political party, not only, but also trade unions, everybody. So people who say this is the first time, but I don't blame them. You see, the dictatorship lasted too long, and the whole generation of people now in place and talking who never knew of anything that existed before. They didn't know that before Jammeh there was a system, and really a good system with a good quality. So that's just a point of correction about it. So anyway, this is the context within which I would like what I said to be viewed. I only cited it as an example of the pertinence of the subject of resource management. Just as the question of religious tolerance also pertinent. Others are also pertinent. If I had time, I could have taken them and give examples.
But how did you see the whole initiative? You said, of course, you welcomed it. But what would you have loved to see the outcome?
Well, this is the issue. This is the point. The very fact that the president thought of the idea is good. One should applaud him. But I think much of our applause should wait and see the outcome. You have to wait to see the outcome. You see, what is good about his idea is that, as I said, to my mind, and I think it means it's whichever way you look at it, some signal of a willingness of the government to consider alternative views. So that is good.
That
one
is
can
very
applaud.
good, yeah,
But I would limit my applause to because that's so far as an indication of an intention.
Yes.
That's an indication of an intention.
yeah.
It's only when we see the outcome of that,
it.
in the coming months and weeks,
Yeah.
that I think we should really go into big applause. That's why I stand. on the issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's now move on to other areas. You don't have much time. We're talking about the region. We said we talk about the region. Senegal, where you know very well, you served as a diplomat there. I think, if I'm right, I was too small. But it was much late in the Senghor regime and the beginning of the Abdou Diouf regime when you were in Dakar. And you must have been a keen follower of this. The recent events, and in fact they are ongoing, suggested that there was a problem, constitutional problem with President Macky Sall attempting to postpone the elections. Now we heard that the Constitutional Council has disagreed, and now he has agreed to call elections as soon as possible. No date has been given. Now this crisis, what would you tell us, your perspective about the whole crisis from the beginning to now?
Just a matter of historical detail, yes. I as part of my career, the Foreign Service Officer, I got promoted to the position of Ambassador or High Commissioner in Senegal in 1979. And you are right, it was President Senghor who held on. So it became my own personal privilege to have had that closeness with him, the closeness of ambassador to president. I wasn't saying we were having lunch every time together, but at least I had access to him.
But you were much closer with Diouf.
Well, yes, Diouf, of course, yes. When I was appointed, he was prime minister. So my relations with him started officially, and then it went on when Senghor handed over to him, and of course, generationally also. A number of them then, Abdou Diouf, Habib Cham, Mustafa Niaz, looked up to me as a brother, because you must remember that my contacts and connection with Senegal and Senegalo-Gambian relations started earlier. I had a career, the Senegalo-Gambian permanent secretary. I was number 2 there. So I had a lot of ins and outs with Senegalese officials. So a lot of them got to know me very well personally when I came in. So that's extent. And that was also the case of Abdou Diouf, when he knew, when I first met him, and when he perhaps knew me, he was then prime minister. That's just a historical detail. Now, well, yes, the present situation in Senegal is certainly a matter of great concern, and I think it's healthy that Gambians followed it. Not only as a matter of...
But then, of course, Gambians are following, but what really worries or surprises Gambians is the Gambian government is not making any public stand or on the matter.
Well, I don't necessarily.
You don't think, as a close neighbor,
I'm not worried,
or in the framework of the regional bloc, government should say something?
I'm not worried. In the first place, I don't even know that the government hasn't said anything.
Well, not publicly.
No, this is
not
what
publicly.
I
said publicly.
No.
I said publicly.
No.
And I'm right.
No. You said I have not done anything. Anyway,
I said publicly.
Yes. But I say belief. A wise, point of wisdom that in fact diplomacy is not for the marketplace. A lot of things go away from the public view.
I agree.
So I wouldn't even know that the present government hasn't done anything.
Well, not publicly.
Well, if they may not have
said anything.
But they may have said so. They may have done what they could have done.
But they didn't say publicly.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be diplomacy.
Well, sometimes it's good to be clear for people, because sometimes silence may people may misconceive.
Yes, sometimes it's good to be clear, but sometimes it's not necessary to be clear.
And you think this matter so close from
No. Anyway, this is a secondary point. You asked me about what I said. I don't know. And even if they didn't, I'm not quite sure I would want to blame them. This is after all, we have close neighbors, but this is a sovereign internal affair of another country. So you have to.
But ours was a sovereign internal, so Senegal participated, and in the framework of the regional.
We called them. We called on the region, and the region came. It has to be there. I have to be careful.
Okay.
I have to give a context to that. And just like...
so even in 1981, we called it?
Of course. We invoked the treaty. We invoked it physically.
Yes.
I mean, formally. Okay. And I had the privilege of
you were the center of
being, it...
Okay, let's go ahead. What's your perspective of what's happening?
You diverted me.
Okay.
Took me to Badibu. Anyway, now I think, as I said, what the situation there is understandably of concern to many Gambians, including myself, because it looked for the past few months, several months, and even up to now, it does continue to look dangerous. It could lead either way, because there were crises within crisis. There was the crisis brought about in the conflict with it's almost ideologies, because the phenomenon of Usman Sonko and the PASTEF and their allies became almost an issue of ideology different from the owners. So much so that, in fact, the government sees them as populist people subvert. It's anti-system. They call them anti-system. Yes. So the
Sonko phenomenon, you said, it's become an ideology.
It's an ideological one,
which is difficult to kill.
Yes, it's not easy, and it led to serious conflict when the kind of attempt by Sonko party to do activities which they consider legal, constitutional, like demonstrations. It was seen differently. It led to a lot of them. I think 1,000 of them. That's a major crisis. Not to talk of those who lost their lives. On top of that, also came recently a interinstitutional crisis when a decision taken by the Constitutional Court
you were very much conversant with this Constitutional Council. It was set up by Juve, was it?
Yes. But it's But really, I mean, he set up the one denominated Constitutional Council.
Yes.
But in all democracies, there is always some institution which is given the kind of role that the Institutional Council does. In our country here is maybe the Supreme Court to some extent. So it is not the idea, but the particular nomenclature of Conseil Constitutionnel. Yes, Abdou
set it up.
Now the interinstitutional crisis I talked about was when a decision they took in the normal, regular exercise of their functions came under criticism by a completely different national institution, the parliament, when they came with this idea of setting up a parliamentary inquiry into. I mean, this is a major problem. And you may not agree with President, the steps that President Sall took, but really the reality is there. It's a very serious thing, because it could go anyway, either way. So that's really some of reasons why that was a matter of great concern to us. And as you know, following his decision to postpone, to announce a postponement, that you see the reaction that drew in the country, but also internationally, particularly because that decision, whatever his justification for it, touched on a very fundamental constitutional requirement that the mandate, it shouldn't have the implication of the mandate that he held to go beyond, which is enshrined to be intangible.
And therefore you think
two things that are intangible are the republican nature of the state of Senegal, and that the mandate should not be more than 5 years, not even less.
Yes, he tried to lessen it.
When it was 7 years, he tried to lessen it, and the same constitution said no. Similarly, the same logic. So that is the point there. Now, and that shows it's a dimension of the gravity of the crisis we are going into, because he saw it that way and he took a position and said, "I'm putting off this thing." Now, The miracle, and of course, it led to the consequence. I said, we saw demonstrations and even some more deaths, and also, and also that flew into the face of another major thing. That's the ECOWAS additional protocol, which prevents member states to try to alter anything relating to the electoral law within the last 6 months.
Yes.
Now he changed it. It was less than within a month.
Less than 3 weeks.
So that's all makes it very dangerous. But to cut a long story short, I think a miracle happened in Senegal. Whether they will put it to the prayers of the religious leaders, because the recent ruling by the Constitutional Court made it clear that that step that the president sought to take is not valid, it's not legal. So they now have to come back, and the president has come out to say yes, he will comply. Of course, there are practical problems when. But again, that also some guidelines are there, because the ruling of the Constitutional Court implicitly says that his mandate cannot be extended. So it means that elections have to take place between now and
April the 2nd.
So really the rest is the practical administrative detail. They have to look at it and see if it's feasible. But as I say, it's a miracle, because we were on the precipice. We were on the precipice in the country, in Senegal, and with implications for the rest of us, particularly at a time when the whole sub-region, as you know, is in a very fragile situation. So it was a mess, and I personally celebrate it as a triumph of a fundamental institution of the country. Is the Constitutional Council, which has in the past been decried over a number of years. People even, but this time it has really salvaged its honor, and so it is solid. And it goes to show that what a state needs, in the modern sense of the state, is a strong institution. So that's a very good thing. I hope the practical difficulties of conducting the elections in accordance with the ruling will be found by the Senegalese. So it's a matter of great concern, but fortunately, I hope now we'll find a solution. And I also fully understand that Gambians showed their concern. I don't agree with you that.
I want you to put your diplomatic hat aside now, and let's talk about it.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you that our government is under any obligation to go public. Even to do anything.
I said
yes.
People are saying they have not had the Gambia government make any stand publicly. You told me that in fact some things can happen, in the background, and they are not under any obligation to come out and say these things.
And if you're happy with that,
I agree.
We got the point.
I agree that's point. But you yourself, putting your diplomatic card, who do you blame for? People said President Macky Sall didn't even want to go in the first place. That all these tactics were all inspired by the fact that he didn't want to go. Remember the question was whether he wanted to go for a third term or not. He came out to say, no, I'm not going to third term. People say that is because of pressure he came under. Now the postponement of election is also seen to be a way of buying time to stay put.
Well, I think people are entitled to have those kind of suspicions.
Exactly.
But just as there are others who will say, well, look, what has been proven by fact is that on the question of third term or no third term, back in June or July, he came out and made it clear that I'm not going to go. Then over this issue also...
Again, he said he meant what he said, but then of course...
I think people are entitled to that. It's okay, it's all right, I can understand, but I think he can also have a defense to say, look, judge me by what I do, not necessarily what I said or didn't say. He has been quite clear from the time he started his second term that in his opinion it will be bad tactics to announce whether he will go for a third term. He said that's why he adopted this attitude of neither yes, no. Because he says And I can only take his word that if he says yes, this could be unsatisfactory consequences. If he says no, it could be so. He chose to have a policy of neither yes nor no. Well, people have their.
You saw Senghor and particularly Abdou Diouf from close range. Compared to Macky, who do you think? Again, you put your diplomatic card up. Who do you think? Who do you think was more in terms of democracy? Whose regime really enriching the democratic principle and foundations of the country? So, because Senegals have for long been seen as the envy of the region, more or less, a very strong partner in international scene. Mohamed Ibn Chambers, the former UN envoy in West Africa, was here last week. I mean, he was invited to come and restart the constitutional talks, and he told the MPs, the Gambian MPs from both sides of the political divide, he said, look, you people should now look at the context of the affairs in the region now. Today we are getting problems from where we least expected them. He said, you people are living very close to the place. Right now, President Tinubu is going to Senegal, and that's the last place we think we will have problems with. So there's no doubt that everybody is disappointed, President Macky Sall, with his decision. If we are going to put the diplomacy aside and to be blunt with it, he seemed to be isolated on this particular case. You tried to invite me to do a comparison. Senghor, Diouf, yes. So maybe I can proceed on that basis. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Quite interesting. I would rather make an observation which will reflect what I think of them individuals in the context within which because context varied, and give them credit where I thought credit was due. But comparing them, that poses a problem. It depends.
You want to say because generations are different?
Yes, it's difficult. The contexts are very different.
Okay.
But
democracy is democracy. And
yes,
the fundamentals, once they are, the fundamentals are harmed, we'll know.
I will talk about them in terms of how I saw them contribute to democracy. Okay. But when you want me to say, Macky Sall 10/10, this one 9/9. That is a different matter. I don't want to go that way. I don't want to go that way because I think the bases are not there. The contexts are very different.
Okay.
When I took up responsibility in Dakar and even before, Senghor from 1970 in the political reforms. Because before 1970 it was a one-party state.
Yes.
He banned all opposition. From 1970 he introduced reforms and said moderate opening.
Yes.
He opens the space for 4 political parties to reflect what he thought was acceptable ideological leanings. His own party, the Socialist, was then the UPS, Union Progressive Senegalese, had taken a social democratic leaning, so it became party socialist.
Okay.
He allowed Abdoulaye Wade, who came with a party that he said had a liberal democratic leaning. He allowed it a party democratic. Majemoud Diop had a party which was unashamedly Marxist-Leninist. He said, I take you. Then at the right wing, there was an old man who had I don't remember that came. So these are the 4 parties that were allowed.
I see.
It's easy to criticize him, to say, well, when you come to democracy, don't put any limit. But within the context, it was undeniably an improvement, and perhaps based also on solid reasoning that this, democracy in our society, which didn't have a long tradition, but it has to be introduced in a gradual way. That was the reasoning.
And I think
he
quite gracefully handed over also.
Not only that, I think his whole governance, system reflected strong endorsement of many democratic principles. Senghor encouraged equitable distribution of resources, which is important in a democracy. Democracy is not just about allowing 10 parties or going to vote. Your governance has to also show that you endorse principles which are clear to democracy. So democratic practice and the solid state institutions which Senegal is proud of. It's Senghor who led the foundation. Very strong institutions, from the military to the civil service to the foreign service. He led very strong delegate. So his contribution to building democracy. Coming to that also. Coming to that also. I mean, he did that. And at a time when...
And not many Africans were doing that
at the time when he was under no obligation by the Constitution. He did it. Yes, he did it. I wouldn't say that's an undemocratic.
That was unprecedented at the time.
It was unprecedented. It wasn't anti-democratic, but he wasn't really. He wasn't obliged to do it. He did it. I think the credit goes to him. He did it, and he did it sincerely. Because with him, he had been announcing it.
That I will go in 1980.
From 1970, when he appointed a prime minister for the first time, he did say, I intend to leave at some point. You would call, I'll take my poetic retirement. And he kept to it. When the time came, he did it.
1980.
And he did come at the time, I'm sure, under a lot of pressure from people, but
not to go.
He showed character.
He showed
statesmanship. So really, when it comes to his contribution to democracy, I certainly applaud his democratic credentials. He's done very well.
Diouf,
when he handed over to Diouf, the first thing Diouf did at his inaugural address is that political space is open. Other parties can come in. Because even after Senghor opened it to four currents, ideological currents, there were some groups in clandestinity. In Dakar. Oh yes, they were in clandestinity. So and some were even in exile. So he said, come back, form your party. So along that line, he's already marked first goal in contributing to democracy. And I think in terms of his governance also, he did a lot of things, including giving this constitutional council and giving it that amount of power, mandate. So he did a lot, and equally important, or even most important to his honor, when he lost the elections, he accepted. You need to read the account done by his then interior minister, who was responsible for organizing the election, General Lamin Sise. General Lamin Sise wrote, and that dramatic movements that night, when there were a lot of forces telling Abdul,
no, don't accept it.
First, rig the elections. When and Abdul, today I surprised just close. And so he has also contributed to democracy in a very, very meaningful way.
So you don't want to give scores, but already already you are going to that. What about this one?
What's on first goal has been in agitating for opening the political space. What says, and is confirmed, that he found it necessary to go and meet Senghor at the OAU summit in Mogadishu to agitate for his party to be allowed. Of course, I mean, I'm sure Senghor was thinking along that. But from that time, because he was one of the first, his party was the first to come out as soon as Senghor announced it openly. And from there onwards, he continued.
He said he had to go to Mogadishu.
He met him. He met him there. Well, of course. I think he might have been there for a different matter, but the fact is that
must have been shared barrister.
That was the time. And of course, the Libre Parti Democratic Senegalais also really can claim to have made a significant contribution to democracy in the area of pluralism. Democratic pluralism, and also even breaking a culture, because before then, Senegal was coming from a one-party, and there were a lot of people who think, no, too many parties is no good. And especially all the neighboring countries were going one party. So, he was suddenly, the fact that he can show his party existing, has gone a long way to bring about almost a cultural revolution in people's thinking. I give him a lot of credit too. Macky Sall, a different context. As I said, the latter part of the second term in particular, he had met a lot of difficulties which didn't obtain before. The kind of opposition he met is a very different kind of opposition. Yeah, no, it's a serious ideological. This party Pastef came with a different view. On top of the other objective problems.
But he didn't do well in handling
economic and social. Well,
he didn't do well in
question
handling.
of
He used brute force and how to call it persecution.
Well, he saw it as a challenge,
Yeah.
and he came out with measures which he thought are adequate. But those
measures are not adequate. They are persecution.
You are entitled to disagree. They are
problem.
excessive. But that's his own way.
So we agreed.
It depends on his appreciation. So I think Senegal has been lucky,
Yeah.
and to some extent Gambia and Africa is lucky that this country, Senegal, you said even Chamba said there's a country which is a
Definitely.
model. It's not a model.
Yes.
They had a succession of leaders who have made significant contribution to not only the institution but the deepening of democratic culture and democratic governance system in their country. So I give all of them a lot of credit.
Finally,
don't tell me to.
Finally, let's export the Senegalese problem, or a little bit of it here. It has been said that people said they sense that President Barrow may not contest in 2026. Well, as it is, I have said it. President Barrow never said it. I will not contest, and I'm sure you will never hear it. I will contest for the same reason as maybe what Sal may have been saying, that it may be too early to say this or the other thing. Yeah, but there's a reasonable belief, if you talk to people inside and outside his circles, that probably there is a thinking that he may not go beyond 2026. Now, as it stands in our constitution, like we talk about Senghor, President Barrow may not be under any obligation to go, not to contest, because he can always claim, I have served only, one term in terms of, in terms of this new constitution. But if he, as Senghor did, under no obligation, decide to go, wouldn't that be a very concrete plus in our democratic tradition? Or wouldn't that help cement our tradition, our democratic tradition? First of all, do you sense anything like that?
No, I don't sense anything like that, and I've not been told by President Barrow that he's thinking.
No, you don't expect that. But did you see?
But you see, my own concern or my obsession is not with individuals. Barrow today, Barrow tomorrow, or somebody else, doesn't matter. It is more the system.
Yeah, but it matters if the individual says, okay, I have served 2 terms, the constitution still allows me to go, but I'm going to go, like Senghor did, but I'm going to go, because I want to help the institutions of democracy, so that anybody who comes now would definitely be morally compelled to say, look, the tradition has been set, I'll have to go after two terms.
Yeah, but
then you don't have problems like Macky Sall.
No, okay, you wouldn't allow me to complain.
Okay,
but I'm saying that my concern
yours is not personal about institutions.
My problem is with the governance system. The governance system, and if that change which I dream for, which I yearn for, can be brought about and under President Barrow, well and good. I have no problem with that.
But government system can be the reflection of the style of the one who's leading it. So it matters whether the person leading it is conformity. It's in conformity with what you expect. Your expectations.
No, I'm a bit more.
I can see you don't want to individualize, but I'm telling you,
I'm a bit more optimistic than you are about human nature. People can change.
But you said you've been waiting from 2017 to now. And
but
you said there are still manifesto of what you have been expecting.
I'm still not, ruling out the possibility of himself or his party or people who coming to see the light of the day. If Saul on the way to Damascus.
But you've been waiting for 8 years, you said.
Yes, but it can happen.
Okay.
One of the most prominent disciples of Jesus, Paul, who was initially very much anti-Christianity, but he saw the light and came around. So it's not true. It's not impossible. Right. No, but I'm saying that really what you are saying is not the point that I like to debate about whether he wants to leave, whether he doesn't want to leave. I think the system is what makes me unhappy. If it can be brought up, a change can be brought up, that's what will make me happy. Who brings it up, if it is Barrow or somebody else, is of no concern. It is the system that I think is bad. But whether Barrow wants to leave, he hasn't told me, and I don't expect him to tell me. And it leaves me, the famous words of Yusundur, Numatri Nelaw. Whether he scores or he doesn't go, I will still sleep.
Okay, the Honorable Bakary Bunja DABO. This is one last thing. What inspired you to spell your name in such a unique way? D-A-B-O-U. That's only found in Senegal, D-A-B-O. What inspired that?
No. It's not unique at all.
Oh, really?
It's not, no.
Very few.
You ask.
You are first prominently.
No.
Okay, who else? Tell me any prominent.
No.
Tell me any prominent.
Of course,
I spent 20 years or more in the newsroom. You are the only prominent person in Gambia. I see D-A-B-O.
No.
The rest are Senegalese.
No. I never had a birth certificate at birth.
But why everybody say D-A-R-B-O-E? Why do you say D-A-B-O?
But let me explain, Cham.
Okay. What inspired?
From school, and that was the practice. Many of the people of my generation had their names spelled D-A-B-O.
But I have not known.
Oh, yes, a lot of them.
Don't tell me anyway.
No. Not only that, but phonetically, it's the correct way of spelling it.
So all the rest.
This has come about.
All your kinsmen, D-A-R-B-O is Darboye.
My personal impression is very wrong. Phonetically wrong. And I think really, and I feel sad about it because it not only D-A-R-B-O, that's not the only form. Some spell it D-A-B-O-R, some spell it
D-A-R-B-O-E, Darboye.
No. That's all I don't agree. Particularly also, this is a name, a patronym, which is shared by many people. From Gambia here up to Mauritania, up to Nigeria. Only Gambians and Sierra Leoneans will see this D-A-R-B-O-E. It has no basis, not in phonetics, not in anything. Oh yes, go to Senegal.
But did you adopt this primary schooling?
Even
in Nigeria and Kayaf, or was it your high school time?
Pardon?
Did you adopt this thing?
No.
Primary school?
No. It has always been Dabo for me. People sometimes force it when they write to me later D-A-R-B-O, and I just tone it. But it has always been D-A-B-O. Oh yes, if you ask people who worked at Radio Gambia or the bulletin, many times I would ring to protest that my name must not be spelled D-A-R-B-O. Many times.
Yes.
Many times my name would come out and I'll say, no, that is not correct.
I first saw it in 92 at the Observer. I said, wow.
Ah, yes. My name is spelled D-A-B-O, and I'm not the only one. I know of many Dabos.
So I didn't see any prominent one. I haven't come across only you are the only one prominent.
Yes. My late
Senegalese, of course.
My late brother, Seni Dabo.
Okay.
Musa Dabo. All those
Musa Dabo, the politician.
Oh yes, they all D-A-B-O is a standard. It's a standard and is phonetically well founded. You ask anybody. I think this one. Well
Okay. The Honorable Bakary Bunja DABO, D-A-B-O. Thank you very much, the leader of the Gambia for All party. Thank you very much for being on the Brunch. And we look forward to having you more frequently now, I hope.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
I commend you and your prestigious program.
Thank you.
And I also use the occasion to take leave of your distinguished listeners and viewers.
Thank you. And they're all around the world listening to you.
Okay.
Thank you all for being on the Brunch. And thank you, Mr. Dabo, for being on the Brunch. We'll be back next week.
Okay.
Goodbye for now.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.